Hey, this is Lisa from the Newbies Hangout page. Thanks for joining our group. We knew there was a need for the newbies out there because they kind of don't get enough love. So I'm going to show you guys how to set up your preferences. We may do it in a couple of videos just because it could take a little while longer. I know people like to stop it and look at it and stop it and look at it. It's a lot of information to take in at once. But we're going to go over the toolbars, preferences. I'm probably going to go ahead and do the preferences first because that's important for you guys to have that stuff set up. So if you're looking for your preference in Silhouette, you're going to look for this little gear. See, mine's over here in the right hand corner. You can also go up to File, go down to Edit, and Preferences. It does the same thing. Okay? You're going to click on this. The first tab you come to is General. Language is default unless you speak Spanish or French or German or whatever. You would change that to your default language. Check for updates. I just leave mine at weekly. I don't change that. If you find yourself saving to the hard disk all the time or the hard drive or the library, whichever one you save to the most, check that box. I save to my hard drive a lot. You don't need to worry about this unless you are from another country and you have to do meters. Mine typically auto sets to inches, which I'll leave it at that. Show dimensions. Let me show you what show dimensions is. So if I click on my design I have over here, my rectangle, see these little numbers? Those are the dimensions. So if I uncheck the dimensions and I click apply, see how they're gone now? So I'm going to go back to my preferences, which is the gear. And I'm going to scroll down. If it didn't open up here in the General tab, scroll down, show my dimensions. In order for that to work again, you always have to click Apply. And now my dimensions are back. So how do we get back to the preferences again? This is a test question. You can go to Edit, Preferences, or the gear. Hopefully you got it right because that's a test question. So that's kind of really all that's in the general section. I leave my DPI at 300 DPI. This is going to be any designs that you send to your printer, like for print cut, things like that. Alright, on to the defaults. Okay, so what this means is solid fill. So you notice when I did my design, it filled with a color. Most of yours only do an outline. So if I switch to the outline, see, I make sure I have to click apply or it does not work. So click apply. Now if I draw a circle, there's no color in it. Strictly a preference, you do whatever you want. I'm visual, I like the color. So how do we get back to our preferences? Anyone, the gear, or edit preferences. I like the gear because it's lazy. We're going back to the defaults. So right now you can see that it's set for solid outline only, not solid fill. I like mine on solid fill, so I'll check the box and I'll hit apply and I will be able to draw solid ones again. So if I do a different one, okay, see how that works? Oh, this is a cool feature. You ready? Look how many sides I can get with that. Okay, back to our preferences. So test question, edit preferences, or you can go to your gear. We've been through general, that's done. Now we're going back to the defaults. Registration marks. You want those on or off. The only time you're going to use registration marks is if you're doing print cut. So if you're one of those people that do print cut all the time, then leave your registration marks on. Check the box and hit apply. I am not one of those people, so I leave mine off. Okay, this is an annoying little thing, which I'm sure you guys have seen in here. Center of rotation. Mine is off. Do not show. So I'm going to show it to you. So we click the box and click apply. It is that nasty little bullseye. So when I click on that and I move it around, the only thing it does is it rotates the design around that little section. That's all that it does basically. So to turn that off, because it can be annoying, especially if you're working with tiny things. So if I make this really small and I want to move it, see, I usually get stuck with that dumb little center of rotation thing. So how do we get back to our preferences? I feel like on Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Anyone? Anyone? Because I'm talking to myself. You go to your gear or file and edit and preferences. Going back to our defaults, I'm going to turn off that nasty center of rotation because I don't like it. So every time you click apply, it closes your Preferences window, click your gear again, go back to your defaults, let that open up. So choosing the page orientation is strictly up to you. If you always, majority of the time, do everything in landscape, click landscape. If you always do it in portrait, click portrait. If not, let it choose itself. Okay? We're going to come down to the blade type. Choose automatically. The ratchet blade is basically what we use to cut with. It has our blade in it. If you do a lot of sketch pens, so if you're a paper person and you write a lot of things, then I want you to choose the cap blade. That way it's always there when you go in. You don't have to change it around. It's customized to what your work is. Now I'm going to show you cut to the edge of the page. So if I uncheck this, just bear with me, and we're going to go to our page settings, which is here. And if I show my cut border, see how this little line popped up now? That is how far your vinyl is going to cut. Okay, so I'm going to click apply real quick. And let me make sure that I have my settings the right way. Okay, if I take off cut to the edge, and then I go back here and see how it moved my line over. So I'm losing just a little bit of the hair of my vinyl, but that does add up over time. Okay, see here? Now, I'm going to go back and change it to cut all the way to the edge. So I go to my gear, which is my preferences, down to the defaults, scroll on down and say cut to the edge of the page. Now what I want you to do is I want you to watch this little line right here. Okay, click apply. See how it disappeared? Now my line goes all the way to the end of the 24-inch vinyl, or 12-inch, or whatever you have in there. Okay, so back to the preference window. We go to the gear. We're still in default. So that's everything on there. We're going to pop down to display, which is pretty simple. The interlock, I can't even say that big fancy word. I just leave it at whatever it is. Doesn't matter to me. The button size is a really cool thing. This button size controls these buttons at the top. So if you can make them smaller, because I have mine pretty big, so I'm going to click apply. See how much tinier they got? Old people like me that can't see, I want bigger buttons. So go to your preferences. Again, how do you do that? I know you just said it. Everybody goes to your gear, or you can go to edit preferences, does the same thing. Back to the display tab and make my buttons big. Always click apply. See how that took effect? Easier to see. So go back to your preference window, come down to display. The current theme, all that means is the background area, this right here. We can change it to white. That's really all that it does. Nothing fancy. I like mine in gray. The brightness, too bright, too bright. Okay, curve quality, that basically just means smoother curves on anything that's rounded. I've never had an issue. I've never had to change it. So I just leave that one alone. Okay. Editing. Editing the Bezier control handles. That is a big fancy word for these. That's all that is. So you want this to control all points? Yes, because you want everything to change at once. So it stays within proportion. Okay. Now what you're going to do is when you subtract or subtract all, maintain the thick lines as lines. These I just leave alone. I don't mess with them at all. Okay. Whatever your default is, leave it there. All right. Down to import options. This means anything that I'm bringing in. So if I'm bringing in a format of the GSD, I want it as is, and I want to make the white lines black. Because if it comes in and has a white line, you're not going to see it. So same way with the DX. I don't use a lot of these. Some of these are for like different file endings that the Silhouette has decided that can be saved as or brought into the software. The DXF, you can change it to as is. Always make your white lines black though. Okay. Importing the SVG. So if you have Design Edition, you're going to do this a lot. All the time. So I usually put mine centered, which means they're going to center to the page, because sometimes I am working and I have stuff everywhere and my screen is pretty big, so I lose things. So if it's centered, it's going to dump right here in the middle for me. Okay. Always make your white lines black. Join lines into polylines. It just means it's going to connect some of those lines, which is a good thing. Leave those alone. Just if you have not, you can change these around. Okay. And play with them and see what works better for you. But make the white lines black. That's important. Okay. Down to the selection. Where this becomes important is I usually just say select the shapes that are touching the drag box. I don't change a lot of this, these two anyway, but when you come down to this section, I kind of do. So when it says after creating a shape, basically when I pull one of these out and I click off of it, it doesn't automatically create another shape. So I leave mine as after creating a shape, choose select. If I say continue drawing shapes, I'm going to click apply and let me show you what happens. So I'm going to draw a rectangle. See how it does that? So if you're going to be drawing a lot all the time, you can do that. Otherwise, you have to click select to make it stop. So back to our preferences window, we're going to selection, and after creating a shape, choose select. I want you to do the same thing for after drawing freehand, choose select. After using the eraser, choose select. After using the knife, choose select. Okay? Because what happens is, if you're using a knife or the eraser, it's just going to keep erasing. You're going to have to go back up and click select, and sometimes it kind of gets stuck in that mode, and you can't get up to the select little icon right here fast enough, okay? The next one is our silhouette devices. This is kind of important. Some people I've seen on the page say, it's not recognizing my silhouette. It can't find it, it can't find it. Sometimes I'll come in and I'll uncheck this button and hit apply, and then I come back in, go to silhouette devices and say scan, because then as long as your machine is plugged in when you do this, it's going to be able to find it. Okay? I do not choose do not release connections, but I say when the panel is closed, it will release those connections. So basically I'm not working on it anymore. Or you could do auto release when connections are not in use. Okay? So the advanced section, there's really nothing you're going to do here. All of these functions here are going to be used by the Silhouette company. So if you call them and you're having issues with your software, this is typically where they'll have you go to fix any default factors or anything like that, or set permissions, or maybe reset your library, find your library. Okay, so these you don't have to mess with. The only time you would have to change anything is if you think that your computer, the software is being slow and acting up, maybe not going as fast as you think. Change it to 500 bytes on the packet size. Basically, it's the way it talks to itself, and if you do 1,000, it's looking for more packets of information to be sent to it. Okay? Then click apply when you're done with all your settings. So basically, that's setting up your preferences. So if you have any questions at all, you can always get a hold of me on Facebook, tag me in a post or whatever. Some people are more comfortable messaging. You can do that. If it's late at night, sometimes I tend to crash and die like at 10 or 10:30. You can send me a message. I'll get to you in the morning. I am an early morning person, so sometimes it's 4 o'clock in the morning and I'll message you back. I don't expect you to be awake, but just to know that I'm still going to get to you. Sometimes it takes me a little longer, but I do eventually get back and answer everybody. Alrighty, you guys have a good day, and I will talk to you later. As soon as I figure out how to close my recorder down here.